r/NoSleep. Posted by u/rydenanne. I heard my best friend's voice again. I almost immediately wished I hadn't. I remember when my childhood ended, and I suppose that isn't normal. Many people, I'm sure, just grow into adulthood naturally. For me, though, I felt it end deep down in my core when my best friend, Whitney, died. We did everything together, even alternated having dinner at each other's houses each night. Living just across the street, it was easy for us to spend all our time together. Then, at 11 years old, she was just gone forever. Some hidden heart defect that had been with her since birth. It was hard to understand as someone who was just shy of 11 myself. Still, like a severed limb, something fundamental felt as if it had been brutally removed and I went numb. I drew back into myself and didn't talk to anyone for weeks. It got worse when I woke up one morning, looked out my bedroom window, and saw a moving truck in front of her house. Apparently, her parents couldn't take living there without her and the pain split them up. Their house was empty and they were gone in a day, without so much as a tearful goodbye. Days after that, I couldn't sleep without having night terrors that I still cannot recall to this day. I'd try my best not to sleep at all. Instead, I'd stare out the window at that empty, brooding house, imagining that Whitney was still there. On one of the many nights that I woke up, sweating and racking my brain for what exactly had frightened me, something about the light outside looked different. I pulled myself out of bed and walked over to the window. A single, blue light shone from somewhere inside the house, in Whitney's room. Honestly, I thought I was still asleep and dreaming. That's why I decided to forego waking my parents and instead, quietly snuck out the back door. I didn't even bother to get into my tennis shoes and coat despite the fact that it was a freezing March night. I barely noticed the biting cold as I ran across the street and behind the house, knowing the sliding glass door in the back had never had a lock. The emptiness inside the house felt so very wrong to me. I basically spent half of my childhood there. It was home, and now it wasn't. Nothing was left behind except a low sound coming from somewhere upstairs. Before I knew it, I was at the top of those stairs and staring down a hallway with all doors open except one. Light leaked from underneath. Again, somehow believing in my mind that I was dreaming, I didn't hesitate when walking down the hallway or opening that bedroom door. What had once been a little girl's crowded, toy-filled bedroom was now near empty, but not completely. There were a few boxes, an old desk, and Whitney's TV. It was pink, Hello Kitty themed, with a built-in VCR and karaoke machine. She'd gotten it for Christmas and I had been jealous. It was turned on, tuned into a children's movie we both loved, Thumbelina. I felt myself smiling as I walked closer to the TV. I stood there for a minute, feeling tired and a bit in a trance as I watched the colorful characters dance across the screen. It only enhanced the dreamlike moment when the screen fuzzed out and the image was replaced by a face, a real face. Whitney's face. "Emily? Is that you?" Her voice spilled from the speakers, unmistakable. My heart began to beat a little fast, but feeling that there was no way I couldn't be dreaming, I responded. "It's me. Whitney, I miss you." Her face was close to the screen, basically the only thing visible. "I miss you, too." There was a pause after she said it. A few moments of silence where I didn't know what else to say. Or maybe I was afraid I'd wake up and the dream would be over. From somewhere downstairs, there was a crashing noise. It startled me enough to cause me to turn towards the door, and it was that moment that I knew that I was awake. Nothing moved in the hallway and no other noise came, so I turned back to the TV. It was still fixed on Whitney, but the picture was coming in even more fuzzy. This made no sense. I was awake, I knew my friend was dead, but there she was, on the screen. "Aren't you dead?" I didn't want to say it out loud, but I had to ask. Plus, feeling much more awake in that moment, part of myself reasoned that it could be a recording. If I hadn't been fully awake before, maybe I dreamed the previous responses. However, when Whitney smiled almost immediately after the question, I knew I probably hadn't. She giggled. "Of course I am, you know that." With each word, the screen grew a little fuzzier. "Ask me anything if you don't believe me." Her voice echoed, sounding off-key and almost layered. "Come on. Don't you want to know what it's like? Being dead?" Again, Whitney laughed, her face still taking up a majority of the tiny screen. I shook my head, tears involuntarily streaming down my face. So many questions rushed through my mind. Why was she doing this? Why did she want me to know this? There was a second of silence on both ends. I, frozen in front of the TV, and her, staring from somewhere inside. Whitney's smile began to grow larger and larger, each tooth sharpening into points. The voice that came from the speakers now sounded more like 7, and all were deep and filled with blissful rage. Well, why not? It bellowed and the screen flickered black. Everything on my tiny body trembled. It had already been cold at night, but something inhabited the air in that moment that felt subarctic. My feet were already cautiously propelling me backwards before my mind even registered them doing so. Still, my eyes didn't leave the TV screen as it rotated between plain black and white. Gurgled sounds came from the speakers. They began to form words around the time my body reached the threshold of the bedroom door. "It feels amazing," it chanted over and over again, the sheer volume greatly contrasting from Whitney's quiet voice. The floor underneath my bare feet began to shake. The windows rattled. "Oh, don't go, oh," the voice called from the TV. The screen finally ceased flickering, illuminated the bedroom with plain white light for a minute before shifting back to a distorted, almost human-like face, nearly resembling Whitney, but not quite. "Don't you want a hug from your best friend?" it shrieked. Just then, the face pushed through the screen and into the real world. In 3 dimensions, it was hideous. The skin of an 11-year-old girl stretched over the face of something horrid, something inhuman. Black goop dripped from its overstretched, grinning mouth, onto the carpet. Sharp, angular shoulders emerged as well, then long arms with dirt-covered fingers reached out. Reached down. Braced against the floor. With every move, its face became more distorted, its voices multiplied. "Don't you want to feel this? It feels so good." I still didn't even notice the steady stream of tears falling down my face. "No. You aren't Whitney. I don't want this." My eyes couldn't leave the steaming, elongated, horrible form that was pulling itself from the tiny Hello Kitty TV into the real world. Somehow, though, my hand reached for the doorknob. In a flash, I slammed it closed behind me and practically launched myself out into the hallway. Almost instantly, as the door latched, no more light leaked from underneath. The house was now dead silent. Still, I didn't stay to take the chance, running home and locking every door behind me. The following day, the house was silent. Not a single suggestion that anyone was inside, so once the babysitter let me outside to play, I snuck back in again. The bedroom door was closed, as I left it, and the TV was off. The carpet underneath, once tan, was blackened and burned. I unplugged it and, despite being a very skinny 11-year-old, lugged it across the street and into my dad's workshed. At least, I thought, it would be safe there. Neither of my parents ever asked questions about it, even when I asked them to please not touch it under any circumstances. There would be nights when, despite knowing nobody had been out there, I'd look out a window to see the shed lit up. Instead of repeating the same mistake, I'd wait until morning and always find the TV plugged in somehow. I'd unplug it again, move it away from the outlet, but it'd always find its way back there until it inadvertently got sold while I was at summer camp in high school. Now, to this day, I don't know where it is, though there are times where I think it doesn't matter. There are more than a few nights where I wake up with the TV on. Sometimes, it's a fuzzy screen and others, it's a children's movie I love. Pulling the covers off me, as if it's nothing abnormal at all, I get up out of bed and unplug the TV set, hoping that her familiar face doesn't flicker onto the screen again.